So then.
Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hi, this is Nick Anastasiou, lead editor and writer on Maul Shadowlord, and you're listening to Aggressive Negotiations.
You have wandered on into the middle of some Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast here on the Nerd Party Network, hosted by your two friends, myself, Jedi Master John Mills, and my dear compatriot, my ever long-suffering companion in this journey, Jedi Master Matthew Rushing. Matt, how are you doing this evening? Or day, whenever people are listening to this across the galaxy.
Thankfully not suffering, John, and one of the main reasons for that is because I'm here with you to talk about Star Wars, which is one of my favorite things to do, and, still kind of, I feel like, basking in that glow of The Mandalorian and Grogu and Darth Maul, the Maul Shadowlord having come out, and so just enjoying the soundtracks that came out for those as well, and just eagerly anticipating now the hopeful physical release of The Mandalorian Grogu, maybe within the next 6 months. So, I can enjoy all the special features, and I can, do things like watch with the director's commentary and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, man, I mean, to me, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan, and it's a great time to be talking with you about Star Wars.
Well, gosh, Matt, I'm kind of torn here because your suffering is actually what I enjoy most, but sure, we're here. Let's talk about Star Wars. What the heck? And actually,
we're made to suffer. It's our lot in life.
Exactly right. And I think that, if people love to share the word, you can go over to Apple Podcasts, give us a star rating and review. We'd appreciate it. You can reach out to us at thenerdparty.com/contact and find at the Jedi Masters out there on X Twitter. And I think we're just too old and busy to find any other topics or to find any other networks to be on. But what I can say, too old and busy to find any other social networks to be on. But what I can say is that we promise that if we ever do go on TikTok, neither one of us will ever try to invent a dance. So while we won't invent...
I don't know. I think I want to do the Size Noodles,
Ooh, the size... Well, okay.
The Size Noodles. Come on.
Hold on. Are you talking 1983 Size Noodles, or are you talking special edition 1997 Size
Mashup.
Noodles?
That's what I'm talking about.
Ooh. Now, see, I like that. I like that.
Come on.
You can call it the stringless marionette. And you start off with like the herky jerky movements, and then all of a sudden you're doing the hip thing.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's
like you start off with a lane and then move into something smoother.
Yeah, I like that. I like that very much. I just promise that get a couple of drinks in me and I'll be jaw yowza for you. Okay? So I'll just run up and just go, ah! Wow. Who can believe it's been so long since Jaw Yowza came into our lives? I'll never forget him. May he forever be in our hearts. So, though, I do have a little fun idea here, Matt, because I was thinking, right, we seem to be, like you said, we're getting a lot of content for Star Wars, but we haven't had any announcements for anything. I think D23 is coming up as of this recording. Isn't that sometime soon or something like that?
Yeah, probably.
Sure. Why not? They have it. But it feels like there's got to be some announcement coming along here, right? The whole thing is we've got this new era of Star Wars going along. And I always think about, well, what movie or what show could they do? And I was thinking specifically about the fact that I think we have an opportunity here, and I want to get your perspective on this. We have explored the Bad Batch and the Clone Wars, seeing the good soldiers follow orders. We've seen them go through everything, and we've seen the perspective of the good guys. Are we entering an era where we could be looking at a show about stormtroopers finding their way in the post-Return of the Jedi world? And being true Star Wars, it's almost like a mirror image of the Bad Batch, where eventually these guys are going to get to a good place, but they're trying to figure out what their lives mean in this post-Empire world. Do you think that's a show that could work in the modern Star Wars era?
I mean, so is the good place like the world between worlds, or like a heaven, or something like that?
I'm talking more that they become decent blokes instead of stormtroopers, you know?
Oh yeah, okay. No, I figured that's what you meant. I think that's an interesting idea, and one of the reasons is because, with clones, the story as it's set up, they go the way they do because they don't really have a choice, right? And those that are able to countermand the programming, it takes, some sort of freak accident, or it takes intervention by somebody like Ahsoka or something like that to have happened for them not to go the way that they go. But so many people, who join the Empire, that's their choice, right? And so I think you do have this really interesting story that you could tell about the idea of what happens when the, Empire ends. And, you have those people coming out of it who really believed in the Empire. You have those people coming out of it who were basically doing it for a paycheck. You had those people who were doing it because they actually liked the mayhem and the murder of it, and being ordered to do these terrible things. I mean, you have a gamut that you could run of storytelling opportunities. And I think, like you said, Bad Batch, with the way in which all of those clones specifically, ended their run as a clone beholden to the Republic and then the Empire, it would be fascinating to watch people who had chosen for one reason or another to join the Empire on purpose. And what are their lives like when they come out of that? I think it's not that we want to excuse the villainy of any person, right? And specifically, choosing to be a part of something like the Empire. But, I think one of the beauties of something like the Bad Batch, where Crosshair is a great example of somebody who just goes with their programming and just continues with it, because it also reinforces previous ideology that he held to. But you also see all the people like, as we watched in Endor, who truly believed that the Empire was doing the right thing, right? They had been suckered into the propaganda from the Empire, and they truly believed it, right? And so again, like coming out of that after Return of the Jedi, I think that does have a lot of validity as a story idea.
Well, I'm glad that you do, because sort of the inspiration point for it is, I know that Taschen is coming out with a volume collecting the original Marvel Comics run, like a nice deluxe hardcover edition, which of course, if I have enough money saved up when it comes out, I will buy, even though I have most of the original run still in the original box that I have everything hidden away in. Trust me, kids, don't break in. It's worthless. I read the hell out of those issues. The spines are broken. There's nothing even remote. If I had it graded by like the comic book guide, everything would get like a 1.3. But just trust me, they've been run ragged.
This is worthless.
Yes, exactly. Are you the creator of High and Lois? Because you were making me laugh. I think that the issue that inspired this sort of thinking is that it was issue 86. It's sick that I can remember this many years later that it was issue 86. The cover of it is you see a stormtrooper holding Princess Leia above a chasm, like a canyon. And he's saying, as he holds her, "Still feeling high and mighty, princess?" The story is this stormtrooper and Princess Leia wind up stranded somewhere, sort of like an enemy mine concept for anybody who's seen that old Lou Gossett Jr. Dennis Quaid movie. And in it, they have to help each other try to survive, but you find out the stormtrooper is actually from Alderaan. And Leia, of course, is absolutely floored by this. Like, how could you possibly be a stormtrooper? And you have that sort of back and forth of him saying, I was doing a job. I'm a soldier. What did you expect me to do? I mourn Alderaan too. Like I think there are just some really interesting layers you could get into. My question is okay, I appreciate that you find that there's validity in that. Do you think that there's a show in that people would want to watch? Because you're guaranteed to have no Jedi in it. And you're guaranteed to just be focused on these troopers as they go through the galaxy and try to find their way. I think you could even have a Bad Batch-like core where what you're saying, one of them is the true believer. And two of them are like, well, no, I was just sort of, I didn't know they were doing this. What are you talking about? And then you have maybe a commanding officer that's like, yeah, I kind of knew that we were on the wrong side, but what am I going to do? My duty was to protect you guys and have that sort of thing. I mean, is this an animated series? Is this a live action series? Do you think they could do this with live action?
I think that's a good question as to what it should be. You know, I do see that the animated route would probably be easier for them in some senses, right? Because, you know, it's probably more cost effective, most likely. And I was thinking of it from two perspectives with the animation idea. Is this something where it's almost like you did a Tales of, and you follow, you know, 3 different stormtroopers coming out of the Empire, and they have 3 completely different perspectives, right? You know, one's contrite, one is belligerent, you know, the other is maybe just completely messed up from his experience, you know. Many people who come out of war, right? They have the PTSD from it. And I think that could be a really interesting idea. And that's where my mind went immediately when I'm thinking of the animated idea. Because do you think, because I think this is the main question, is this an idea that supports like an entire season of something? Or is it better within a short run because it just allows us to explore those interesting ideas without having to try and artificially continue the story, if you know what I'm saying?
I do. I think the big question becomes, what's your point of attack? At what point are we meeting these guys? And I think if you wanted to have it be a full season show, it would have to be started anywhere but the Battle of Endor, because it's got to start somewhere else. And maybe they're deserting or something. Well, or what idea? What do you think would be the ideal starting point?
You said something about Endor and immediately clicked. Like my wife and I just we showed a friend of ours Star Wars for the first time. She knew very little about Star Wars. We finally got through all of them. We finished Return of the Jedi. She was like, I think that's my favorite. The last 2, they're her favorites. And so it was wonderful. But Rex, right? It just made me think of, what if a stormtrooper or 3 stormtroopers surrender to Rex on Endor?
Ooh.
Right? And you have that juxtaposition of, and so that maybe is our in for the story. And what if it's about Rex trying to help these guys be rehabilitated?
Yeah.
And the difference between how each of these 3 guys approach it.
I like this. I like this a lot, because by having Rex as the underpinning of the show, you have an opportunity, because you have a character who's gone through the whole journey all the way there, and he can be a great counselor for people, sort of the way Captain America winds up being a counselor for people after, you know, the snap in Infinity War.
Yes.
He's been through it. He can counsel people how to make life work after, you know, terrible tragedy in their lives.
Life after Empire, you know? It's like...
right. Yeah. But the thing I struggle with Endor, tell me if this plays in it for you at all. The thing I struggle with for Endor is simply the fact that I think that Endor as a starting point got burned out by some of the early new EU literature that Disney released, where it seemed everybody was using Endor as the flashpoint for their story. And it was like that's the one thing is that just a personal thing that I have? Is that something that is just my own hang up? Because I would say I like the idea of bringing Rex in, but I would even enjoy seeing these people start at one of the celebrations at Bespin or even on Tatooine. Like, so, troops on Tatooine, first and foremost, we love to start things on Tatooine, but additionally, having them at some outpost where you can, like you said, not excuse, but understand how somebody could say, look, I just enlisted because what else was I going to do? I just wanted to be a soldier. I wasn't thinking about anything. And he just spends his whole career, as it were, just like posted on some dustball planet where the worst thing that ever happens is he has to like stun a Jawa who's trying to steal their speeder or something.
Yeah. Yeah, I do get what you're saying. And I think one of the things that when I think of the idea of that there have been, other mediums where we've talked about things like, what happened after Endor and that kind of stuff. I'm reminded that Dave Filoni overwrote the Ahsoka novel by doing his version of that story and had no problem with it. And so that's where I love, the expanded material.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, if we have a good enough story, I don't care about overwriting it and maybe giving us the definitive version, and I know you don't either. I'm not saying
please
you
be
do
sure
at all.
I would not object. I would not object to overwriting that material at all.
But
not at all.
But I think, I think there is a lot of different storytelling options here, in all honesty. I think what we're seeing is as we're talking about this, there are a lot of different ways that you could attack this. I still am quite taken just with the idea that Rex is somehow involved, and because again, like you said, that gives you your in. And the other part about this is that it begins the question, and this is, I think, the other big question, right, is what do we do with all of these people? And we've seen a little bit that in The Mandalorian, right? The Rehabilitation Project. We just finished talking about The Mandalorian Season 3, and we saw that. These people who are working for the New Republic, and but I think it would be more interesting to actually delve into that in a way that didn't feel so truncated. And, maybe not as well done as we would hope for a story of that magnitude. And so I think we're coming to is that, you just can't, get away from these type of stories because I think they do give us the opportunity to see how, our heroes differ from those that they fought. Right. And how they treat those who were on the other side. I think there's a lot of great storytelling for that.
I think you're right because we could see the birth of the rehabilitation program in a sense by we see everybody celebrating and the Ewoks playing the helmets as part of the music. And then the camera just sort of scans down and there's a slightly lower level where all of the guys whose helmets those are, I know, we love to joke that the Ewoks ate them and stuff like that. But those guys, they're the ones sitting down there. And you have Rex saying, hey, look, there's a lot of mess out there. You willing to give this a shot cleaning up? And you can have that discussion. It's the same day. You guys just beat us. You're reaching out your hand. And Rex saying, if somebody hadn't reached out her hand to me at the worst possible moment, I wouldn't have been where I am. And I owe it to her to help you guys if you want it. And we are following people who chose in that moment to say, yeah, you know what? What have I got to lose?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the beauty of this is a storytelling structure, right? Is that just like the Bad Batch did, this allows us to be able to tell larger stories within the Star Wars galaxy, right? You know, that these guys that are being rehabilitated with Rex are then a part of storylines that help us understand the formation of the New Republic and all of that kind of stuff. Like, and they get to meet heroes that are much easier to do again in animation, where whether it's Luke or Han or Leia or Chewie or other characters like that, right? That it just it allows you to play with all of those toys in the sandbox without having to worry about how much money do we have to spend to try and do this in live action. And, you know, that's one of the things that we've talked about many times. In fact, we were even just talking about it on our last episode, right? That the animation has really, in many ways, become the glue of Star Wars, where it is bringing together some disparate elements, right? And trying to make sense of it, because Star Wars has always been a continuously told story. It is a alternate history of a galaxy far, far away. Right. And everything is interconnected in a way that helps tell the larger whole, you know? And so I think by telling this story, it allows them to be able to do that alongside of something like what we've been getting in Mando, right? It's another opportunity to kind of try and sew together the Star Wars galaxy.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I think it's something to work on, and I think that it's something that could really be interesting because it is coming from a different angle, where you're not starting with the good guys, but you can go on a path where they become them, and they find their way to it, and we can see what I think is that hopeful note that persists throughout Star Wars, that the larger bend of the galaxy, of history, of life, is to end up toward something a little better.
Yeah.
That even though you go through difficult moments, the better future is always there. And you can't give up on it. And like, again, you could have Rex saying that same thing when they get downtrodden. You know, Rex comes in for that special episode where he goes, "Hey, I've been where you are, man. I understand. I had to go to ground and hide." And it wasn't until, you know, they found me again while I was on an old converted AT-AT wandering through the wilderness that I suddenly knew it was time to come back in.
Yeah.
And have those references there.
Well, and I think the other thing about this that I think really works is that George was very keen that Star Wars stories were bastions of good morals, meanings, and messages, right? He was very keen on this idea. And all of his stories in some way, shape, or form do that. And I think what our world needs more than anything right now is that we need to show people that find a path to redemption, right? Find paths to forgiveness. And our world is in desperate need of being reminded that what we all need most is redemption, right? We've all done things that we're not proud of, and every one of us. And so for us to be able to find that is really important. I think this could be a show that really does that. And so, in all honesty, I think as we've talked about this, I truly believe that this is a story idea that we should sell to Dave Filoni. So I guess we better call him and
we should.
Just get on it right now. And I think I think we've got a great show for him here at Animation. We've got a new show for you guys.
No, I think it's great. And in fact, if they want to reach out to you and discuss the terms of our being hired, Matt, as showrunners for this, even though neither one of us has any idea what a showrunner does, I think we'd be great at it anyway.
I think we'd
honestly,
be excellent at it. I don't know what you're talking about.
Hey, look at me.
John.
I'm throwing around an industry term, showrunner. Bang. There you go. I know what I'm doing. There you go. But if they wanted to reach out to you about the details for our contract, where could they find you online?
Well, you could find me all over social media under the name Matt Rushing02. So hit me up there, Lucasfilm. John and I are ready for work. You can also find me here on the Nerd Party Network doing another show called Owlpost. Talk about every single chapter of the Harry Potter series, one chapter at a time. And I'm also on the TFM network doing a bunch of shows. One's called the 602 Club, talking about all of the franchises we love. John's a frequent guest over there. Plus, you can find me with a lot of great Star Trek talk there, too, with my good friend Chris Jones. But, John, if people wanted to, contact you and get us a job with Lucasfilm, where can they find you?
Well, you can find me out there as Kessel Junkie over at kesseljunkie.com or on your social network of choice. My preferred ones are Letterboxd and Goodreads. Please join me over there. I am active on a few others, but catch as catch can, mostly a lurker. And of course, you can find me here on the network co-hosting another show called House Lights with Tristan Riddell and Darren Moser, where we talk about movies that are not Star Wars, because I would probably reach through the screen and slap them for some of the thoughts that they have about that. So, Matt, all of that said, I can very clearly see that somebody is signaling that we need to go back and sign a contract back at the temple. So I think it's time to close these negotiations.
John, negotiations are closed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.